Well, hi there, food friends. It's Kevin.
Hi there, Kevin, and welcome, food friends. I'm Ralph behind the camera.
And welcome to Cavalcade of Food.
And what is this we have on the chalkboard today?
Ike's chocolate cake.
Ike.
Ike, as in Dwight David Eisenhower, former president of the United States.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. So our dear friend Gayla was by a little while ago, and she dropped off a box filled with old newspaper clippings of recipes that belonged to a family member of hers that passed away. And I spent hours going through them. And you know, Ralph, you think back, especially like when we were kids, how many recipes our moms got out of the newspaper.
Right, yep.
And their recipe books and their recipe files were just jammed with clippings. Well, they saved the entire page from the Detroit Free Press from October 12th, 1956.
Oh my goodness.
And it says, "Happy birthday, Ike."
Oh, wow.
So it was the president's birthday, and it says, "President's favorite cake looks stupendous, but it's a cinch for any woman to make."
What about boys?
Well, you know, they didn't think about that back in 1956, but you know, some of the best bakers on earth are boys.
Our guys, yeah.
And girls too. So
Boy, that has held up through the years, though.
Yeah, hasn't it?
How old would that be? Like 60?
Well,
almost 60 years?
64 years old.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Ike. Yeah. So anyways, this is the cake that I read the article.
It even says, "I like Ike."
Yeah, on the top, you see the "I like Ike" buttons. That was his campaign slogan. I think he was president for 2 terms, but
you read the article.
I read the article, and apparently this was his favorite cake. He loved it, and for his birthday every year, he requested it be made for him. So either his wife would make it, and then, of course, when he was president, the White House kitchen chef or whoever would make it for the president. So we're going to make it and see what we think. Let me give my hands a quick wash. But it's sort of a fun historical look at a cake that would have been, you know, made through a recipe in a newspaper, like we said, 64 years ago. But you know what? It lives on.
It must have been a hit.
It must have been. And like I said, when I it's hard to go through these newspaper clippings and not really think of Mom and our grandma, and that was a way that people, of course, it was a newspaper. We didn't have internet, and that was how we got so much information.
Mm-hmm.
Not just news about what was going on in the world, but practical information like recipes.
Sharing recipes, and if it's good enough for Ike to like, then we're going to like it too.
So we're going to try it. So here's what we've got, Ralph. I've got a half a cup or 1 stick of butter. This is unsalted, and it's been out at room temperature, and
on
it's
a hot
warm.
day.
So yeah, we are going to cream that with the sugar, which is 2 cups of sugar. Okay, so we're going to put that here, and we're going to bring these 2 things together. I've got let's turn it around for the folks to see. We're going to use this wonderful Hamilton Beach mixer here. It's got sort of a sliding control. It even has a setting, number 4, for creaming. I don't know if you can see it. But Hamilton Beach made a lot of mixers, and we're going to let that do its thing, and we're going to let that cream. In the meantime, we're going to sift together. I've got 2.5 cups. Let me get my sifter. I've got 2.5 cups here of cake flour. Okay, so you want cake flour for this as opposed to like an all-purpose flour. Not all flour is created equal, Ralph.
I didn't know that. So cake flour, is that easy to find?
Oh yeah, it's any grocery store would have it. It would be with the regular flour. It's usually in a box.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple of different brands out there of cake flour. and it is a softer flour, and it's finer.
Pre-sifted, maybe?
Yeah, almost all flours now are pre-sifted,
Oh, okay.
but we're going to put in the cake flour, and then I need some baking soda and baking powder. So a teaspoon each, baking soda and baking powder. So there's the powder. Put in some baking soda. 1 teaspoon. So this is our leavener. Okay, this is gonna get the cake to rise
To the occasion.
exactly. And then we need a little salt, 1/4 teaspoon. We're gonna put that in here too, and then we'll sift all this together, and we'll have our dry ingredients at the ready. So it's always fun to find these old recipes and to think, this was a president's favorite cake.
I must say, you're looking rather spiffy in honor of President Eisenhower.
Well, you know what? And a couple people have asked, and so, you know, if I don't collect enough junk as it is, with all these appliances and everything, I collect vintage neckties. And over the years, I've gotten quite a few of them, and they just hang. And I don't wear a tie to work often unless there's occasion to do it. So
you have more ties than occasions, in other words.
exactly, there you are. I have more ties than occasions, and I thought, you know what? Why don't I just start wearing? I like, it's okay. I don't have a problem wearing a tie, and so these are the ties I collect. The real wide numbers from the late 60s and early 70s. This is actually more on the narrow side, but I love ties of that era.
The cool designs, and when they're real wide like that, you can use them for a napkin. Or when they have
right, or now we could use them for a mask, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Or if you get any food on a design like that, it might be hard to tell.
So, all right, we've got our dry ingredients sifted, and then I'm going to come back here and continue to cream up our butter and sugar together. We want to get this nice fluffy. So we got a nice fluffy egg and sugar mixture there.
That's called creaming.
That's called creaming.
Butter and sugar.
Butter and sugar. What did I say?
You said egg.
Egg and
Egg sugar. Okay, because eggs are on my mind, and here they are. We're going to get to those in a second. But Ralph, this recipe calls for a cup of sour milk.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, does that mean you leave the milk out, or do you have to buy
Not sour grapes.
not buttermilk?
Not buttermilk, although you could use buttermilk.
Tell us about sour milk.
So sour milk is milk that is sour, and you have to make it sour. It's not like milk. When milk spoils, we say it's sour.
Oh, it's not milk that went bad.
Not milk that. Don't use milk that went bad.
I'm glad you said that.
We're going to make sour milk,
Okay.
and here's the formula.
So it's an actual thing. It's not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's milk that has a certain acidity to it, and so because milk you have fat, and then we're going to add an acid to it, and that'll make it sour. Okay, so I've got a cup of milk here.
Right.
To 1 cup of, and I'm using I'm not sure. I think this is 2% milk, or you use whole milk. Now we need to add an acid to. So every cup of milk, you take a tablespoon of either lemon juice or, and I don't have any lemon juice, white vinegar. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Either one will work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tablespoon here.
So a tablespoon per cup of milk.
No. So I've got the white vinegar. We're going to stir that in. And we're going to just put it aside, okay? And it'll start almost immediately, but give it a few minutes to really get sour the way that you want it. Okay?
Let the chemistry do its thing.
Exactly. Let chemistry take its course. Now, the recipe calls for 3 eggs, back to the eggs. But it wants 3 eggs separated. Okay? So, we need to separate the yolks from the whites.
Okay.
Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these 2 little custard cups here to hopefully separate the eggs.
Well, those are some tough eggs, aren't they?
Well, there we go. I'm trying to be gentle. I don't want the yolk
And
to break.
or the shell to get in there. Uh-oh. See what he's doing, folks? He's kind of playing back and forth with it till the egg white separates from the yolk.
Right.
Wow, that's almost like a magic trick.
Now, people have different
Methods.
of separating. They even make little gizmos for separating eggs that you can buy.
I've seen people do it with water bottles, too.
Yes, there is that.
This is just as easy and simple, and it just uses your...
This is how I learned to do it, and
uses
so
your hands.
I still just do it this way. Again, though, you don't want... We're going to have to beat the egg whites. If you get any yolk in there, there's something about the protein, or there's something in the egg yolks that will make it hard to whip those egg whites to beat them.
If you get the yolk in there, so that's why
Right.
you're being very careful.
So I just want...
I'm impressed. I would have yellow all over my hand. Oh, some of the...
I see. So before it goes in, I'm gonna... No,
So it's-
none of it fell
No,
in. So
but it's
we're
okay to mix the white, if a little white
It's
gets...
okay if a little white is in the yolks.
But not the other way
But
around.
you don't want it the other way around.
Okay, I understand.
So we've got our 3 eggs separated. So now that that is done, we can go on to the next step, which is to our creaming mixture. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla to our butter and sugar. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of vanilla here. And we're going to put in our egg yolks.
That's no yolk. And what about the chocolate? When does that come into
Well,
play?
that'll be the next step. So 1 step at a time. So what we want to do is get this nice and mixed in. See how it's coming together here?
Yes, you can tell by the color that it's doing what it needs to do.
Yep.
I see you're pouring some boiling water.
Yep. A half a cup to be exact of boiling water. And I'm going to take, I have 2/3 of a cup of cocoa powder here, Ralph. By the way, people have commented on this bowl. Yes, this is a Franciscan, I think it's Starburst is the name of the pattern. I have this and maybe 1 little bread plate, and I have 2 pieces in that pattern. And I love old patterns, and I pick up a piece here or there because I like it, but I don't have the whole set. So, but I love to use this bowl, it comes in handy. I'm going to add the half a cup of boiling water, and then we're going to use this to dissolve the cocoa powder. It's odd that, I mean, this is how they get the chocolate in the cake.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times too is you use the baking chocolate. You know,
those bars.
The bars, the squares. You melt it and you add that. But this is what the recipe calls for.
It
So
seems almost like a step saver. Is this easier?
in ways it is. You know you have to be careful melting chocolate because it burns very easily, and so you got to use a double boiler and all that. This actually is much easier.
And you can't just throw a Three Musketeer bar in that cake. Or a
Right.
Hershey bar.
We want to get all that in there.
Looks like
Okay. So now that that is there, what I'm going to do is we'll turn our mixer back on here, and we're going to add our chocolate into this batter. And just like that, you got chocolate cake. Uh-oh. See what I did?
Yep. You got a little on the counter, but you do have fingers and you do have a spatula
And
to the
because
rescue.
you keep your counters clean, folks, you can do that.
Yep, that is a 100% COVID-free counter.
Yeah, sure is. All right, so now let me get this all combined. So when the chocolate mixture really thinned out the batter here a little bit.
Oh yeah, made it very liquidy.
Mm-hmm. So, but what we're going to do now is we're going to alternately add our flour, salt, baking powder, baking soda mixture, and our sour milk.
Wow.
And I don't know if the camera can pick it
Yes.
up. Can you see how it sort of almost looks curdled on the top?
Yeah.
That's exactly what you want. Okay? So let's start here. Put a little of the flour mixture in. And we let the mixer do the work. Scrape down as it combines. I'll turn it up a little bit. Then go ahead and add some of your
Chunky milk.
cottage cheese. All right, again, scraping as you go. If you don't have a stand mixer and you have a hand mixer, just take your time and make sure that you get all of it thoroughly incorporated after each sort of little mix in here. All right, we're going to put in some more flour. Then get that worked in. It's coming together. It smells wonderful.
Yes.
Nice and chocolatey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a little bit more of our sour milk. So we're all blended here, Ralph. Okay, with our cake batter.
Yep.
One last thing to do. Remember, we separated the eggs.
All right, and you only put the yolks in there.
I only put the yolks in here. So I've got these 3 egg whites.
I bet I know what you're going to do with that. Make it frosting?
Well, no. That will be the last step. But for the cake itself,
oh.
Now I've got another mixer here because I didn't want to have to clean the batter
just to
off
start
the
a
beater
new
and all
thing.
that stuff. And when you have 100 mixers, why don't you just get another one? Right?
So are these egg whites going
These
in
are
the?
just egg whites.
And they're going in the mixture that's going to make the cake.
We're going to fold them into the cake mixture.
Make it more fluffy.
Right, make them more fluffy. So here's what I have found: that it's easier to separate eggs when they're cold, right out of the refrigerator. But the eggs will the egg whites will whip up faster when the egg whites are more
room temp
or a little warmer and cool. So if you've got eggs to separate, take the eggs out of the fridge, separate them right away, and you should always use room temperature eggs anyways in baking, and then set your whites and yolks aside until you're ready to do something. See, look how quickly this is coming up. So this maybe got me another 2 or 3 minutes. We'll have our egg whites where we want them, and then we'll fold them into the batter. All right. So, how long do you beat the egg whites? How do you know when they're beaten? Well, first look at the recipe. This recipe said stiffly beaten egg whites, which means you have stiff peaks. So when you lift the beater out, it doesn't flop. The peaks don't flop over. Okay, or when you look at the top peaks here, they're standing up firmly. Sometimes they'll say soft peaks, and then that way you'll beat a little less because you want those peaks to sort of flop over a little bit. So it just depends.
Look at that.
Put this here. Maybe I'll take this out because we certainly don't want to lose any of that batter. The Hamilton Beach mixer, where it differed from other brands, is it had a one-piece beater mechanism, as you can see, Ralph. This is all together, rather than like most of the other ones, most notably the Sunbeam Mixmaster. They had two individual beaters.
Yep, I bet that brings back memories for a lot of our viewers when they were kids and they would lick the beaters.
Yes, and like, you know, would you remember the mixer that your mom or your grandma had? Maybe it was a Hamilton Beach, because if it had a beater like this, they were the only ones who had that design. Okay, so now we're going to fold in. Okay, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. Now we're gonna fold them. Okay.
That's a tribute to the late great Kenny Rogers.
There you go. So, putting the egg whites in, and folding is turning the bowl and lifting from the bottom the batter. Turn and lift. Turn and lift. This is one motion.
Did you learn this in home ec?
You know what? I might have, or maybe Mom. I don't remember which came first, where I saw this, where I learned this technique. But we're gonna.
That sure looks
just gonna
fun.
keep folding it in. This way, what happens is this is a way of mixing ingredients
gently,
so that they don't. You know, we've just fluffed up those egg whites. We don't want to unfluff them by beating them in
or
really hard with the mixer,
or make them clumpy or anything like that. So
you just want to keep at it until all of the whites, or most of it, it's okay if you got a little spot here or there, kind of disappears.
But basically covered up.
Blends in.
So it's not important to necessarily break it up, or does it break up on its own?
It'll dissolve on its own. Now, in the meantime, just so everyone knows, the oven is preheated to 375 degrees, okay? And I have got this is going to be a layer cake. I guess you could do this as a 9x13 sheet cake if you wanted to. I'm just following the recipe from 1956, which calls to have the batter put in, I think that's good, 2 9-inch baking pans.
I think it's been a while since our friends have seen you do a layer cake.
So here is, I've got some nice old, probably from that time, maybe from the 60s, but we're going to use some glass 9-inch cake pans that I'm going to spray with baking spray that has oil and flour mixed in. And so let me wash my hands. I'll come back. We'll get our cake pans filled and get it in the oven. I've got our baking pans sprayed here with our baking spray.
Prepped.
So we're going to split the batter here between these two. Just eyeballing it, Ralph. But
yeah, I was going to ask, and then I thought, yeah,
it's pretty
close
enough. Hopefully President Eisenhower won't mind. Okay.
Maybe Mamie's watching from above.
Oh, it could be.
Saying, get it right.
When you're making a layer cake too, if one layer is a little higher than the other, put the bigger layer, the thicker layer, on the bottom. And you know what? No one's the wiser. Okay?
Okay.
So,
also, if you do it that way, you can, if anybody notices, you can say, I meant to do it like that.
Exactly. It's supposed to be that way. Again, the oven's you got the 58 Frigidaire at 375. We're going to put our cakes in the center rack and 25 to 30 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
And then we'll be back and see how they come out. It has been, a half an hour. And
did you do the toothpick test?
I checked at 25. What I did is the spring back test.
Oh, okay.
See the top there, Ralph?
Uh-huh.
If you just tap that lightly and it springs back.
It doesn't get stuck on your fingers.
Right.
Then that means it's done. It's done.
The other thing, too, is you'll see that the cake is
breaking
pulled
up a little
away from the side of the pan. That's another telltale sign. So, our cake is done. Turn the oven off. And we're going to let these layers cool completely before we do any frosting. Okay, so they're going to need a good half hour. I'm going to leave them in the pan for about another 10 minutes, and then I'm going to turn them out of the pans, okay? And then let the cakes cool on the rack.
And as they cool, are they going to flatten out?
They will a little bit, but not completely. So you can see how they've sort of mounded.
Mm-hmm.
The recipe said to put it in a 9-inch. Could have put them in a 10-inch and they would have been more flat. But what we'll do is we'll level it off.
Okay.
Okay. Turn that down. So Ralph,
Yes.
we are going to make the frosting for President Eisenhower's cake here.
Can't have a cake without frosting.
Cannot. And this is a cooked frosting. And so it needs the use of a double boiler. So here we have. Now, this is an actual double boiler. If you don't have one, you can make one. If you have a saucepan, you just need either a metal or a glass bowl that's slightly larger than the opening of the saucepan. You want some simmering water down below like this, and you put your bowl on top of it, and now you've got a double boiler.
How to improvise a double boiler.
That's right. So don't worry about not having this. You can still make this work. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to put, I've got 1.5 cups of sugar. Okay, that goes in. Then I've got 5 tablespoons of cold water. I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar and a pinch, which is like 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
Put that in. And last but not least, 2 egg whites. All right? So that goes in. So all that's in the double boiler. Let me get something to stir here. What we want to do first, Ralph, is we want to dissolve the sugar. Okay?
Wow, look at that. It seems thick, is it?
It is thick, yes. And of course, you've got a lot of sugar, and what's happening is the whites are starting to cook.
Oh, and cook with the sugar.
Yeah. But I'm actually gonna
Remove
I don't
it.
want the whites to get too far ahead
I
here.
see.
So I'm gonna take it off the heat, and let's just stir some of that sugar until
So you could lower the heat if you were
can
doing
lower
this.
the heat, or now that I'm thinking about it, don't put it on directly over the heat, because I don't want the egg whites to get
I
cooked.
see. So you want to
before the
dissolve it
sugar
first.
dissolves.
I see.
Exactly.
I wonder why it calls for cold water. Since
I don't know. That was the recipe.
some
It's
kind of
5
chemical,
tablespoons
some kind of
cold
physics
water.
chemical thing.
Okay.
Chemistry class I was not good at.
So, all right, I think that's pretty good. Now we're going to put it over the heat, and we are going to take our mixer, and we are going to start mixing. Now, we want this to get to the point where it's going to get fluffy, almost like a marshmallow,
Oh,
and it's going to stand in peaks.
okay.
And that's going to take, some people call this a 7-minute frosting because it took about 7 minutes,
Wow.
okay, in order to beat it into that particular state. We'll see how long it takes us, but we want to keep the heat on.
And before they had electrical appliances, it was probably a 14-minute.
Well, yeah, or
Right.
you would use, one of those hand
Right.
crank egg
Oh, yeah,
beaters
yeah.
that you'd see. That was a popular tool. Well, we got the good old Sunbeam here, hand mixer, 5-speed model, and I think this will make a little quicker work of it. So I'm just going to stand here and keep whipping this until we get the frosting up to the consistency we want. So Ralph, this is after about 4 minutes. See what's happening?
Yeah, it's thickening up and it's getting more white. Like I was
Right.
noticing, it was kind of translucent before.
And it's going to be white. It's going to be white like that, a solid color, and it's starting to thicken. So what's happening is we're beating the egg whites while they're cooking, okay, and incorporating the sugar. That cream of tartar helps the egg whites sort of congeal too. So everything's doing its job. It's still got a few minutes to go, but I wanted our friends to kind of see what it would look like after about 4 minutes. Since now it's where we want it, we're going to put in a teaspoon, Ralph, of vanilla. Okay?
Okay.
Because right now it's just sort of sugary sweet.
Right.
We do want to give it a little flavor, so let's get that vanilla in there. Boy, that's thick, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is what you want since you're frosting a cake.
Right. You can't have it too thin. And you'll feel that on the bottom of the pan, there's some of the frosting that really cooked on. You can kind of feel it. All right. Whoop. Okay. Now we're good.
There you go.
Okay, so I've got a cake plate here, Ralph.
Yep.
And it's like you could just use a regular dinner plate if you wanted to. I just happen to have a bunch of old cake plates. A cake plate, Ralph, is a plate that is made for a cake because it's completely flat. Unlike most dinner plates sort of curve up on the ends, cake plates are flat, straight across.
So it makes for a better presentation
Well,
and easier
yeah.
to get cut.
Exactly. And easier to frost. Now what I'm doing now is I'm just putting little pieces of wax paper under the cake because this will help so that I don't get the icing or the frosting all over the cake plate in a messy way. Okay? All right, so now we're going to take our frosting, put it on a trivet because it's still hot. And let's see, I need that and
Spatula?
here we go.
Oh, a flattened knife. What
Okay.
do they call that? A frosting knife?
Well, it's a spatula.
No, I mean the metal one.
Yeah, it's a cake spatula. It's a frosting spatula.
Look at that contrast
I know.
between the chocolate and the... No wonder he liked this cake. It's just so beautiful.
So we're going to just spread that.
So this would be the bottom layer?
This is the bottom layer, and this is the the in between, right?
Right. Because you want to get frosting in every bite
You sure do.
when you cut into it. This is where some cakes require that you put like a different type of pudding or something in there.
And I'll tell you that. Let's see how this is going to. I may have to trim this a little bit. This kind of frosting, as it cools, it sort of stiffens. So what I'm going to do, Ralph, is we're just going to
Get a sharp knife and kind of flatten out the top.
just like that.
No, don't throw that away. I'll eat
We'll
it.
throw that. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff there.
Now, is
And
it...
I'm going to take a little of this hard crust off.
Uh-oh.
It won't go to waste. I know that for sure.
But I mean, you're not creating too big of a hole. You're going to fill that with
It will
frosting.
get filled with frosting.
I
And
see
let's
what you're doing. Just kind of trying
Evening
to
it.
evening it out more.
Remember when we took it out and they were kind of
Yeah,
bumped in
more
the center?
bumpy cake. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was almost more batter than we needed. All right, so now we're going to put this upside down like that. Okay. God, doesn't that look good right there?
Oh my goodness!
Looks
it looks
like a big
Hostess Ding Dong or something.
moon
or-
pie.
yeah, moon
yes,
pie.
or a Suzy Q. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put some frosting on the top.
Nice. I love how it's sticking together, so like the top cake doesn't even budge because that frosting is like
Like glue.
spackling.
Now we're going to do the sides. You see why I put the wax paper down?
Yeah.
And, any little kind of holes that I created when I cut the excess off, we will just fill. Yeah, now a real cake decorator would have
Like a Lazy Susan
would
or...
have a rotating thing. But thank you, Ralph, for your help there.
I'm a good cake assistant as
Yeah.
long as I get to eat the
results.
the results, the end product.
Yeah,
That-
and
So beautiful.
the aroma of the frosting is very. It smells like marshmallow to me.
Yeah. Boy. And is this frosting going to stiffen or harden at all?
It
or?
will. It will. I mean, it will stay soft, but I mean, yes.
Because I mean, it's so glossy, it almost looks like it's going to harden to
Yeah.
a sheen or a
will.
hard crust or something. But yeah, look at that.
And of course, you do have to wait until the frosting sets up before you cut into the cake. You don't want it. It's almost a little too soft for eating.
Right.
Make sure I didn't. No, see,
Always a little
always
spot
a little spot,
that needs a little attention.
a little TLC.
A little TLC.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
What do we think?
I think
Is
it's.
that presidential?
It looks like it's going to be once it's finished.
So, you know, you could take this over the top by shaving some nice dark chocolate on here. If you had like a,
Yeah.
you know, with like a
little
grater.
Grater. Maybe you could put some maraschino cherries.
Oh
or-
my gosh, yes. You could decorate this more fully. Right now, we've got like this beautiful white cloud blank canvas.
Yeah, I like that.
But you could certainly take this in a lot of different directions. And we're going to have to wait. Again, this will be our dessert for after dinner today.
But we'll
later
film
on.
it.
But yeah, we'll come back when we cut
Well,
into
take
this.
a look.
Good.
Ralph.
That's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, so you know what? We just had a beautiful dinner out on the back porch here. Thank you, Ralph, for tending the grill. And we have been waiting for dessert.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. Our President Dwight David Eisenhower's birthday cake from the
1956.
October 12th edition of the Detroit Free Press. And yeah, isn't that great? And it says it was a cinch to make, and it was. I mean, it wasn't hard, a lot of steps though. I don't know if I'd say a cinch.
I just laugh because for you a cinch, for me a couple
You
of
know.
cinches.
If you know your way around a kitchen, it's a cinch. But the writer who was a person, K. Savage, Free Press food writer, says a moist chocolate cake slathered over with fluffy white frosting is President Eisenhower's idea of a perfect cake.
Wow.
And that's the cake that will top off his birthday dinner on Sunday, made from Mrs. Eisenhower's recipe collection of old family favorites. And because the president's wife has shared the recipe with us, and we baked it in the Free Press Tower kitchen and found it lives up to its reputation, we are passing it along to you. The cake looks very impressive, but is really easy to make. Just assemble all your ingredients, dissolve the cocoa in the boiling water ahead of time, and whip it together. This is a cake that is most likely to succeed as a birthday cake any day.
So the Free Press had their own test kitchen?
They did have their own test kitchen. I think many of the big newspapers that had a food department had a test kitchen where they tested recipes.
Isn't that amazing?
And they would have these contests where, you know, they would call for people to send in their best bread recipe or their best
apple pie
or meatloaf or whatever it is, and they'd try them right there. And
yeah, they were doing that up until
I
recently.
mean,
My
yeah.
sister actually won the apple pie contest
Did she?
quite a few years ago now. But
Well, it was a thing. There were people who that's what they did. Somewhere maybe they were home economists, but A lot of them were just they tested recipes to make sure they were good and they worked before they put them in print, which is what you should do. Anyways,
well, if it's good enough for Ike to like, I think we're gonna like
that's
it
right.
too. Let's cut into it.
Let's cut into it, shall we? So, I tried to swirl. I'm not a cake decorator. I tried to swirl up the frosting a little bit.
It looks great, and you know, Mary Ann suggested maybe putting walnuts on there. I had said maraschino cherries. What did you say?
I said you could shave
chocolate
on the top.
Or if you want to just keep it simple and just use it as a birthday cake, just think how great that would look with an array of colorful candles.
Candles, right? You have the white. All right, so here we go.
Doesn't that look good?
There it is. With
the middle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I will say, the frosting is light, fluffy, it's sweet. I mean, the frosting is really sweet, but you've got, to kind of counteract the sweetness, you've got the richness of the chocolate.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good combination. But
it's a light cake.
And the frosting's probably sweeter, like it used to be back then, more than nowadays, maybe.
Probably. And, you know, because remember, we folded in those egg whites at the end, Ralph?
Yes.
That really lends to the lightness.
Aren't you glad everyone was able to be with us for this episode?
I was. And am. So, thank you, President Eisenhower, wherever you are.
Thank you, Mamie.
Mamie Eisenhower.
Here's to you, Mamie Eisenhower.
Anyways, but just isn't that beautiful?
It is.
So this was a really fun cake to make, just because, like I said, our friend Gayla gave us this wonderful old recipe that'd been tucked away all these years, and we brought it to life.
Yes.
And you know what? Cooking is a time machine. I mean, that's what's so beautiful about food and preparation, is we are able to go back 64 years and recreate something. So what fun is that?
Not only do we get to recreate our family traditions and history in that way, but find an old recipe that dates back 64 years and recreate this classic chocolate cake with white frosting. Boy, you can't beat that.
Oh, this was a lot of fun.
It was.
And it's a lot more fun to eat this, let me tell you. And perfect with a cold glass of milk. Oh, that's heaven. So you know what? We are glad that you could spend some time with us. We hope you had fun. We had fun being with you and making this cake.
We always do.
Always. And we look forward to seeing you again right here on Cavalcade of Food. Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you next time. Thanks for joining us.